Let's just come out backwards now. Okay, now it's starting video. Let's just come out backwards now. Okay, now it's starting video. Let's just come out backwards now. Okay, now it's starting video.
Hello, everyone. Looks like we're just waiting for Sergio. Hi, Susan. Hi, Natasha.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, Sergio.
Hi, how's it going?
Good.
All
Good to
right.
see
All right. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm double dipping today, and I have some other meetings lined up as well. So the extent that we're efficient would always be helpful, but if not, I'm committed to be here with you and skip my next meeting. So that's not a problem. I think we're here today kind of just to refine our discussion on where we're going to go or where we'd like to go with regard to mental health, suicide prevention, some of the things that we talked about last time. And the idea here, Natasha, probably for your benefit, if you weren't party to that discussion, was how do we not reinvent the wheel, because Youth Commission's doing some work in this area, although they're probably wrapping up their work for this calendar or school year, and we'll be starting up again at the end of the summer, I imagine.
They're already complete for this year.
Yeah, but also what is the CIC Commission doing, so that we kind of figure out where our biggest bang for the buck is, to leverage those, not necessarily all three commissions working in different areas. So I invited you here, Natasha, just speak a little bit maybe about Youth Commission, where they are at. I can speak to the CIC Commission, kind of where they're at, and then Sergio and Susan, I don't know your thoughts. I know Sergio sent something out with some suicide rates, I think came from the county. So we have that. That was my understanding of where we were going, and I just throw that out there for purposes of discussion if I'm hitting the mark. Sergio or Susan, you want to correct me, or does that sound like the plan that we had discussed?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I could just speak quickly on the CIC Commission. Then Natasha, I'll have you kind of jump in what the Youth Commission's worked on, and then maybe where there's some capacity, if capacity next year. CIC Commission last year had really kind of targeted or intended to target suicide prevention. I know we had two commissioners that this was personally near and dear to them. And nothing really came into fruition last year because of the pandemic. And so this year, their suggested work plan item and their discussions to date have been not as much detailed and focused on suicide prevention, but on mental health piece of it. I think they're certainly related. But I think that this year they were trying to broaden maybe their discussions in a couple of different areas. One is look for ways to improve access to mental health resources. This could be the 211. This could be other resources in our community, either through our website or other resources. And then to work on motivational outreach items, specifically focused on seniors and youth. They're using a program called Campbell Cares as their model, but they're really shooting for seniors and youth. And a few ideas, these are just their brainstorming where they were going to go with it, and they haven't gotten very far, but in their brainstorming ideas, they had mentioned outreach to seniors by using the senior lunch program, perhaps, as a venue for that. They mentioned LGBTQ plus and outreach to that community. And they mentioned mindfulness and those discussions behind mindfulness, whether it's speakers or seminars or resources on meditation and other mindful techniques. So that's kind of where the CIC Commission is. They haven't made any dramatic progress on any of that, but it kind of gives you where they're thinking. Like I said, not so specific on suicide prevention, but I think those things are certainly related to suicide and suicide prevention. So I'll throw that out there for thought.
Great. Brian, I have a couple questions. First off, I know we've had, or we are having some turnover and recruitment. Do you know if commissioners who are particularly focused on that issue last year, if they will still be on?
Yeah, that's a good question. Commissioner Chase had just resigned, was going to support this program, as well as Commissioners Hoffman and her name's slipping my mind now.
Anne was on it last year.
Ann Souza, thank you.
She's not on it anymore.
Yeah, Ann Souza really started this, and then Carol Hoffman kind of took it over. And the commissioner just resigned, was going to be a piece of that. So they'll probably look to bolster their subcommittee on that work.
Mm-hmm.
I have a concern about using Campbell Cares because the chamber is using Campbell Cares as a program that they have.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, my next question.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
could ferret that out with them. I was just going back on the notes from their discussion of what I could glean.
Yeah, I
My
know
guess
that's
is
what,
it's a resource to them to do the outreach on mental health. It's probably not the only resource,
well,
but
no,
I can
they have
clarify.
a separate committee called Campbell Cares. Anne is the one who said she started it, and it was before Ken and the chamber had their Campbell Cares program. So they are two different things. And the other thing I'm concerned about is between what we're trying to do, what the Youth Commission's trying to do, and CIC, we need to all be on the same page. And although the CIC came with their work plan and listed it as an item, there's not a lot of detail of what that means. And you even just mentioned that they don't know exactly what to do. And if we're going to approve them as a work item, I would want more, have them to come back with what the detail about it is, so that we're all not conflicting with each other or overlapping things that we want to do.
I think that was the purpose of this discussion, is figure out how we can mesh those efforts together so we're not duplicating and we're being efficient with our resources. So I can reach out to them, and I don't know when their last subcommittee discussion was. I'll find out, but maybe what we can do is have a joint meeting with the subcommittee of the CIC and this committee discuss. I mean, it doesn't be now with Zoom, it's really easy to get people together, but kind of focus that a little bit on a program that actually achieves something. I mean, that was partly what I think we were trying to achieve. And I don't know that we have complete clarity, but what I shared with you. And Natasha, I don't know if you have anything on Youth Commission. We talked a little bit about this before.
Yeah, so the Youth Commission has just wrapped up for this school year. They just recruited their new commissioners, and they'll have a new group for the fall. And then late August, they do a commissioner retreat where they kind of work through what their work plan is going to look like. And one of my requests for the commission for next year, based on staffing capacities, is for them to really hone in on their work plan on a more narrow focus, with this being one of the highlights of what they focus on through the year. In years past, they've done Mental Health Awareness Month in May. They've done Yoga on the Green events to kind of highlight, finding, your calm. They hosted a video from NAMI at a local high school. They've brought therapy dogs into the high school, and they also have resources on their Campbell Teens website. So they have some experience in this, but I think that this would be a value for them to kind of focus on throughout the school year, and less on some of the event kind of stuff just for the sake of having an event, and being able to report out to council a little bit more regularly about progress or events or things that they're doing in the community for youth in regards to mental health. So it hasn't started yet. So once that happens, that can be an opportunity for us to kind of guide them through, some of the objectives we're looking to have them work on through the school year. And then, this educational committee might be a good sounding board to kind of connect with the school districts and get, some support for on-campus events and things, so that the Youth Commission is kind of driving those things at the local high schools. Because we don't need to reinvent it here. They have the population that we're trying to connect with at their school campuses. So the more we can be present on the campus and helping in those regards is better.
I want to, the agenda said on youth. I saw this as a bigger topic than just the youth. And I just got off the phone with Susan Ellenberg. We talked about the suicide rate charts that Sergio had sent me. And she's wanting champions around the prevention policy, and looking at how, do we implement a policy at the city level. And then I also talked to her about what terminology are we using. Her email talked about behavioral health, but that includes drug use and other beyond just mental health. And what I told her is just using the word mental is, especially my generation, us older people, when we were kids, the bullies would say, oh, you're a mental case or something. So there's a lot of negative connotations around the two words, mental and illness. And I know when we discussed this before, we had talked about well-being. And last year when I was mayor, I talked about brain health and some way to put it into not such a negative term. And so whatever we end up using as the terminology, I would want to be consistent with the county. And Susan said maybe at our next meeting of this education subcommittee, they could have county people that are in this area, that whether it be the psychologists or staff level, but have a conversation with them about what is the best terminology to use. And I thought that was a good idea, to be able to talk directly with the people who deal with this on a day-to-day basis.
I think that would be a value if they could join to get some more information. I found the statistics that she shared both helpful and shocking. Campbell is third in the county for suicides. So, I think definitely should be an area of focus.
Yeah, I was surprised at the age group, that they're over the 50, 60 ages. I would have thought that there would have been more in the young adult and early teen or late teens. So that was kind of surprising. And also the number, she said per 100,000, but we're not even at 50,000. So then it makes our rate even higher as a population if it's only on the 42,000.
Yeah, I think that was the one thing I noted from those statistics is the numbers were persistent year to year.
Yeah.
It wasn't, it's not a one-time thing. So I guess in my mind, as I read this, is probably a lack of knowledge on my part when we talk about suicide prevention. Certainly the term mindfulness and mental health probably are a broader topic than just suicide prevention. And I guess I throw that out there as food for thought of how do we, want to attack this? Would we prefer a more specific view on suicide in which I think we work within the constraints, as it sounds like with Youth Commission and CIC, but we kind of do our own thing on suicide and just leverage their other efforts? Or do we try to broaden that a little bit in mental health and kind of steer their programs, trying to leverage what they're doing, maybe on top of what we're doing? And I guess that's just two different approaches that come to my mind.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, it's a great question, Brian. I think that's why, because I've been thinking about, what's the best approach, and with the subcommittee and with the commissions. And I think that there's different pieces to it. And I think that as a city, what we can do, or one of the things we can do is a suicide prevention policy, which she also sent me examples of what other cities have done. So I think a lot of the work has gone into that. And I think then their representatives can speak more to, if the staff experts can speak more to the kind of impact that can have at the city level. And then I think that the commissions, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Susan, but there might be the commissions can kind of put their own spin on it and address the area of it that's within their purview. And so, for youth might be more dealing with youth, maybe CIC has different areas that they want to focus on, but all of this within, this odd policy area that we're naming as a priority. And then the other thought I had is that although it might not be what we originally meant when we were thinking of education, I'm also thinking more and more that there's an education component to all this in terms of, we're all learning information and educating the community about what these issues look like. And maybe that's sharing some of those county resources that are there. But I think we're all learning and we can share that with the broader community as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned about what's under CIC purview. That's not really in what the group has done in the past. And so I don't know it's under their purview as much as what they would like to do. So first off, I know the Youth Commission has been doing it for quite a long time, and I see that is in their purview. So that was the first
Yeah, and
thing.
I'm just speaking broadly, that wasn't a technical term, but you know, if they want to take this on, I think that's great. I would welcome that.
I think, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, who's the lead? And if the council is the lead to help set the theme for what everybody else is doing, or do the commissions come to us to help set the theme? I really would like to hear from the behavioral health professionals. And I see it's not just suicide, it's overall well-being, either mindfulness or well-being, and prevention. And what are the warning signs? I don't think the average person knows, hey, my friend's having a mental health problem, or they see something wrong and they just go, I don't want to have anything to do with it, and just kind of walk away from the person. So my personal thing is, how do we educate people to see the signs and the symptoms of when either yourself or someone around you is having a crisis, or we want to prevent the suicide? You know, what are the behavior and things that you would see before that? And my mom was in special ed, and I remember her saying to me all the time, you know, the guy goes in and shoots up the school. It's not out of the blue. There's usually a case history behind the person. There's usually a lot of signs ahead of time. And so from my own perspective, I would want to look at prevention in the sense of making people aware of how to know what's going on. I had my uncle 2 years ago that was whacked out and was in the hospital, and I kept having to fly to Pennsylvania. And I learned a lot about, we knew things were going on, but we didn't see the signs of how bad he really was. So that's kind of where I'm at.
So to backtrack just a moment, I think what Sergio was talking about with the different commissions, with the CIC, the Senior Service Division does report to them. So I think that's why they've kind of taken on that older adult focus, and like with senior nutrition and things like that. So that might be, as far as the purview goes, that's one of the areas that they kind of get reported onto regularly. And then the Santa Clara County Behavioral Health has a program that essentially trains youth, and it's a voluntary thing, on how to detect and how to help in the event. And we had someone come out to the county and do a presentation for the Youth Commission several years ago in regards to this. So that could be maybe a starting point. It's the Toolkit for Mental Health Promotion and Suicide Prevention. And so there's a whole program around this that we could maybe collaborate with the different commissions. This is a K through 12 model.
That sounds very interesting.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
What is it that you don't you have a program where you do go out and go to elderly people's houses and check on them? It's not really a welfare check, but
no, we have case management for people, but we don't do home visits anymore. We did have a case manager several years ago who was capable of doing that in, instances where it was just absolutely impossible for someone to come. Now everything is done virtually at the moment. Our case manager is health compromised, so we're trying to, keep her protected as well, and so that she can continue to help and service people, but also remain protected. And so it isn't, home visits are just they're a little bit more challenging. So we don't really have that capacity. We'll oftentimes refer them to more county resources if we can assist.
And is that purely in response to the pandemic that's kind of on hold, or
the home visits were pretty rare. It was definitely something that it was not something we promoted or, advertised that was something. It was really in a rare coincidence that just couldn't happen. And we had a case manager who was willing to do that. This is a single person visiting a home, unattended, without any additional support. So, it does present itself with a lot of liability and risk. And so it's just not something that we've done regularly. It's always been, they come to our office here via an appointment, or we handle it over the phone.
We have significant outreach opportunities, whether it's senior nutrition or some of the senior programs. We could look to leverage those programs with educational outreach as part of that. I
Yes.
kind of see it two things. I think you're right, Sergio. It's easy for us to do a policy. That's almost a no-brainer, right? We could adopt a policy at the appropriate time, but then use that as a kickoff to take it one step further with the commissions and the work they're doing. And I see a couple different areas. Obviously, Youth Commission, CIC, the schools we mentioned, but also in our own organization and what we're doing in our organization for our employees and training them. And of course, we have a fairly robust EAP, employee assistance program. But I think there could be additional efforts there just as an organization of what we're doing and how we're kind of walking the walk with our employees, and use that as a model for outreach to some of the other organizations and business community as well, not just seniors and youth. To roll that out through the chamber, through the Rotary, through some of those communications with the, how do we reach the business community, not just seniors and youth? That's our inclination to say that. But as I look at those suicide rates, they're spread across all the age groups.
It's mostly older. Yeah. I was surprised at the age groups.
This could be expanded to Parks and Recreation Commission too, with ecotherapy and mindfulness and connecting with nature and being outdoors, as far as, improving, mental health and being in nature and the positive impacts that has too.
What are they doing regarding ecotherapy?
Oh, they're not. I'm just saying that's like another concept for mental health, of being in nature is another way of managing physical, emotional stress. And that's, what works for one person doesn't work for, every other person. But for some people, having that connection with nature is their rejuvenation and their way of dealing with stressful situations. So we don't have to exclude Park and Rec Commission, although this has never been one of their work plan items. It's a way to kind of draw them into.
Well, it goes to my thing about having a therapy garden at the community center.
Well, I'm that person, Natasha.
Oh, me too.
If I don't get out and go for a hike or a run, I'm a grumpy bear.
Yep.
Even just to drive around and get outside in your car, especially like today when it's so hot, just sit in your car, but drive around and get out in the country a little bit.
Well, maybe there's some way. I hate to say that we try to get every commission involved if it doesn't make sense, but I think there's pieces of this that we could probably, in the bigger picture of suicide prevention and mental health, I think there's pieces we could pick off with each of the commissions. Parks and Recs is a good example.
So it goes back to...
Yeah, I was going to say it goes to the education component of how, of bringing this to light, that it's not just, seeing a mental health professional, that there's other resources available and free resources to figure out what works best for one person to, deal with stress and change.
Well, and it's even just knowing what resources are available. That's the biggest part of the education is what are the signs and symptoms for you and or others around you, and where do you go to get help and what kind of help? And I know the 211 is a way to do it, but not everybody even knows about 211. So I think where I'm at right now is formalizing what it is we're trying to do, listening to the experts to formalize what we want to do. I don't want to just be spinning our wheels and not targeting what we need to. So I would like to see our next meeting to coordinate through, what was her name? I forgot her name. I think it's Christina with Susan's office. Sergio, do you know her person?
Christine.
Yeah, Christine. To coordinate and have us have a discussion with the county professionals And then out of that, formalize what it is we're actually trying to do. I don't want to take off a big chunk, too broad, to narrow it down enough that there's something we can accomplish in the year.
So let me propose this. So we can reach out to Supervisor Ellenberg's office. So we can set up a meeting, maybe just, as you said, brainstorm what it is we can do aside from the policy, and get a little bit more educated. And then I think as soon as we can kind of formulate what it is we're trying to achieve that's achievable during this year, based on that and all the things we just discussed, then we come to the council, I would say, with a policy on suicide prevention. It's really kind of mom and apple pie. It's hard for people to disagree with. But I think at that meeting, we'll want to have a pretty good plan of what we're going to lay out and work with the other committees on, and get some buy-in from the council. And then I think we follow up with each of the commissions or with staff as needed. Kind of that three-step process.
And last year we set up the planning the collaborative of all the commissions. And maybe that's call another commission or collaborative meeting to have all the groups here. I mean, maybe the bike and ped group want to do something. I think Parks and Rec is a good one, and CIC, the Youth Commission. But to have that collaborative to really get everybody on board. I mean, that was the reason to put that together, was to have everybody marching forward with common goals.
What are your thoughts on if we, and Brian, I think those are good next steps for that meeting, where you get more information from supervisor staff or county staff, of inviting the commissions to that, or do we want to save that for a later date?
My gut feeling is let's line up our ducks with Supervisor Ellenberg ourselves. I want to know what they're going to say before we put all our commissions there, kind of. And I'm willing to have that meeting with Susan's staff. If you want me to do that legwork in advance, I can meet with them, kind of understand how they would do that, if there's some value there. So you don't have to have two different meetings, but I think it's wise to have that conversation with the supervisor staff first, make sure that we're all on the same page before we get the commission spinning their wheels.
I would agree. And I would, again, I want a common united front on this. And I have questions for the experts. Like, for instance, what do we call this? What terminology? And I asked Susan, I said, I look at it similar to the word homelessness versus unhoused. And I said, what was the change and why did it come up that way? And she said, well, homelessness implies they don't have a home, but living in a tent in a community is a home. It's that they don't have a house. I said, well, that's a really good distinction. And it goes to being sensitive to what the person, where they're at in their life. And yes, they do have a home. Wherever you put your head down at night can be your home. It's whether you have a physical structure like a house above you. So some analogy of how does this terminology be more sensitive? And like I said, mental illness is to me a very derogatory and has a lot of connotations with it. I like the ecotherapy. I like the mindfulness, the well-being. Brain health. I mean, that was, I talked last year, body health, brain health. And in fact, I've seen commercials on TV, they're advertising supplements for brain health. So I thought that was the, there is the term is being used outside of our conversations. So
I could reach out to Supervisor Ellenberg's staff and see if we can't set up a meeting. There's no reason we have to wait. Just based on everyone's availability, because what I don't want to do is just lose steam and we meet once a month and kind of have some new ideas and we don't get anywhere. I want to take some positive steps so that we're hitting the ground running, especially when the Youth Commission gets on board back in August. So if the committee's okay with that, I'll reach out and have Diana reach out and see if they can't set up a meeting with her and her staff.
Can we shoot for 2 weeks?
We could shoot whatever time period you want.
I guess we're using
just
that
wanna-
word right now, shooting.
I just want to clarify because I think I'm hearing two different things. I just want to make sure, Brian, it sounds like what you're saying is the meeting with Susan Ellenberg's staffer, who would probably be Christine, just to kind of get on the same page as what we heard. And what I'm hearing, Councilwoman, is not to meet with Christine, who you already met with, but with county health experts who would be better able to answer some of the technical questions. So that sounds like two different conversations, and just Brian could probably reach out and, have that conversation in a couple of days if he wants to get on the same page. But the other one might be one that you and I would like to join. Councilman, is that correct?
Yeah, I think Brian reaches out first. I just literally got off the phone with her, and Christine was there. And her thing is to basically implement a prevention policy, but certainly talked about everything else. So I think Brian reaches out to her office to set up a meeting and maybe give them some thoughts that we've been having. I don't know if she's listening to this meeting. She knew about it. Sounded like Christine might be listening. So first Brian reaches out, gets a better understanding of who they would be bringing in, and then setting up the meeting with the experts. And I would like to do that in the next 2 weeks if we can.
Yeah, well, we'll see what their availability. I'd be glad to set it up. I appreciate the distinction, Sergio. I think I was getting lost with working with the supervisor, not so much on the experts. And you're right, they're probably two different. Although the supervisor's office will probably provide us the best resources to get them to come and meet with us. So I can reach out and shoot for the next 2 weeks if that's your goal. I think that's, as far as I'm concerned, I have no problem with that timeline, but I'm sensitive to your time. So I'll have Diana reach out. I'll speak with the supervisor's office, make sure we get an understanding of the policy. That's really easy. But then have them work with me to set up a meeting with some experts, health experts themselves, on strategy and terminology and all those things we talked about.
Brian, I can also send you some example policies that Christine sent over. I didn't share those, although I'm happy to, before the meeting, just because I didn't want to suddenly dump a bunch of reading on everybody. I wanted to be realistic, because I just got it today, which was why I just sent over the statistics. But I can share that with you as well.
And I saw a chain of emails. I'll touch base with the police chief as well, from the county to the chief, about the policy in April. And there was a conference they were trying to get us to go to, but it may be that we want the police chief in that discussion as well. I don't know that's necessary. I won't get too many chefs in the kitchen here, but Sergio, if you have those policies, there may be in this chain that I'm seeing here. I haven't gone back to the beginning of the chain. There may be some.
No, they weren't. But I just looked. Christine hasn't sent it to me yet, but she mentioned what she had sent you, Sergio, and she was going to forward all of those to me, so we can have you. If you want to forward it to Brian, just
thank you. I got it, Sergio.
Yeah,
you're quick.
And put Natasha if you want to have everything also.
I'll forward it on to you, Natasha.
Okay.
Thank you, Sergio. That's helpful. I don't have to look for it now. Okay.
Well, I think we need to be reporting to council. I know tonight at the end where we have committee reports, I want to make sure that the other council members are comfortable in what direction we're heading. Like I had told Sergio, this education subcommittee really started around meeting with the school districts and the community colleges and the libraries. And we've kind of expanded what the committee is. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I just really want to make sure the other council members are on board with what we're trying to do. So Sergio, are you going to present it tonight?
I'm happy to do that. Brian, are there any Brown Act concerns with sharing that if we're going to be potentially putting something together, or what would?
I think just sharing information, what the committee discussed, is okay. aside from what we're going to be asking the council to do or our opinions.
Okay,
Just maybe the actions of the committee and the follow-up meeting with supervisor's office and with mental, just keep it to the facts.
okay, will do. Thank you.
And then can we say this will be a future discussion with council? Or just leave it as what we're talking about?
I would just leave it as what we're talking about, because then you start getting into that gray area of the Brown Act and future discussions and what are we going to talk about? What are your thoughts and why are you proposing that we talk about that? That starts getting really muddy.
Okay. Okay, great.
And also, okay, good. I think that's good. And I'll follow up, I'll have Diana follow up with the county, or I'll follow up directly.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Natasha.
You guys do so much over there.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it, guys. We'll see you in
Okay.
about 45
See you
minutes.
soon. Okay,
All right.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Hey.
Hey, Brian.